So, in the studio, I have with me Marek Kamiński, the presenter of a series on the First World War, and this is on YouTube, and it seems to be quite popular. Now, Marek, can you give us a quick rundown of this project? Because it's not just a one-off. It's not just one little show that you're doing.
Yeah,
it's actually
exactly.
it's a long-term thing, right? So,
Yeah.
can you give us a quick outline of what it is?
Well, basically, the undertaking, as you mentioned, it's pretty big thing. First of all, it's being produced in three parallel language versions simultaneously. It's being produced in English, in German, because the company that basically produces it's based in Germany, and in Polish. And I'm the host of the Polish version. And it's major also because we're gonna be doing a coverage of the First World War in kind of a real time. So basically week by week, 100 years ago, exactly as it happened. So as you may guess, it's going to take 4 years to actually cover the entire war week by week.
And did you actually know anything about the First World War before you started? I mean, like, let's say, because I noticed that the Polish version is called Historia Wojny Niezananej, so the history of an unknown war, whereas the English version or the German version is just simply called the First World War or the Great War. So, I mean, like, before you started the project, I mean, did you know anything about the First World War?
Well, basically, I knew like major facts. Basically, I didn't study history, but I've passed history on my A levels.
Sure.
So basically, I had like basic knowledge about whereabouts, and we decided to call the Polish version Historia Wojny Niezananej, which is the history of the unknown war, because we have a strong belief, and this is actually covered also by my personal experience from like high school, that the First World War is not entirely covered as much as the Second World War, even though people don't realize that it's actually only like a 20-year difference between those two. And the second one is covered like immensely, while the first one is mostly forgotten. Maybe there's not that much of archival material on the First World War, but that's the fact. And the English and German version are called the Great War and the Erste Weltkrieg, which means the Great War, because that's I guess that's the official name of the First World War.
Sure. But of course, is it because because Poland didn't exist for 123 years under the partitions, that since Poland didn't play a role as a nation during the First World War, that it's not covered as much in Polish schools? And this is actually
I wouldn't say, because actually the episode that we call the part of the war that we covered so far proves that we actually did play a part. Like, it's estimated that around 2 million Poles were actually fighting for the liberty of the Polish nation, for some kind of autonomy. And the funny thing is, I mean, it's not funny at all, but like it's paradoxical that those Poles were fighting against each other, fighting like for different countries that they were basically promised the same thing, some kind of autonomy.
Exactly. I mean, you have the Russians, the Prussians, and the Austrians, and you had Poles in all of these armies, right? So,
like Russians, Germans, Austro-Hungary,
exactly. So, do you think this project will actually raise awareness of the First World War and actually the terrors of the First World War, especially on Polish territories, to people in Poland?
Well, I sincerely hope so. I mean, we are starting. Basically, we started this series with a goal in mind that every episode, every week, because it's a weekly show plus some specials.
Sure.
But basically, the goal was to find at least 3 or 4 crucial and interesting for the audience, like facts from that particular week.
Sure.
So basically, as you imagine, it happened 100 years ago. So we really need to dig in deeply to find those interesting facts. And I'm sure that also because of the narration that we're having in this program, we're trying to keep it as compelling as possible. I think it might raise awareness. I think it might genuinely interest. I personally take pride in the fact that my friend told me that his 12-year-old son is watching my show like week by week, and he's like really grasped by it. And you know how difficult it is to grasp the attention of the 12-year-old guy.
Exactly.
So I think it has a potential. I mean, we have to take a little bit more time to promote it, because right now it's just starting. But then again, we are only like 3 months in, while the entire World War was like 4 years plus.
Exactly.
Right?
And this is what I wanted to ask you, saying to make it compelling and make it interesting. And of course, fact digging is one thing, but what kind of thing can we see in the videos which you present? I mean, is it just you basically sitting in front of a camera, or what else can we see?
Well, basically, so far it's been basically each one of us is playing a certain role. I mean, of course, we introduce ourselves as ourselves,
sure.
But just because we play, we narrate the entire show in a kind of a set, we wear a kind of a costume. I would say that the concept is like you have this intellectual person from the 20s, like few years after the war, and he's telling as if it happened like a decade ago, basically, even though obviously it didn't. But I think...
because you're also using newsreel footage, right?
Of course. I mean, this is the core of the entire show. Basically, we have a established relationship with British Pathé, which is basically I would say, the most large archive of film footage from the 20th century. Basically, they have 80,000 films of various length, of various content. And much of them is covering the First World War. There are also like other conflicts. There are like social matters depicted in those in this footage. And basically, we are honored to be able to use that footage to actually produce our own shows. And this is just like unparalleled experience to be able to go on that website and actually check out the footage. And you read about those people, and then you actually see them commanding the armies. And this is just fascinating even from the point of a host of such show. I'm discovering so much.
And tell me, because you're the presenter of the Polish version of the project, but who is actually behind this project? Because obviously to make so many different language versions of essentially the same thing, that's a pretty big undertaking, especially with the fact that it's going to be lasting for over 4 years.
Yeah. Well, the entire idea of the show was created by the company I work for, Mediacraft. It's a German company that's based in Germany, but also they have their affiliated offices in Holland, Poland, Turkey. And basically, as you may imagine, there's a entire staff of people working on the show. Basically, the core person who writes the main scripts is Indy Neidell. It's the guy is basically, I mean, every time I meet him, it's a unbelievable experience. This guy knows so much. He actually has a dedicated show on YouTube about baseball history from like 19th century, where there was like no film footage, and he's covering with just like newspapers, like with collectible cards about baseball players, and he's amazing. And there's no such thing as I don't know anything about this subject. There's always something he can bring to the conversation, and that's why he was probably picked to be the main scriptwriter. Of course, it helps that the chief of our company is also interested in history vastly. And apart from those two central figures, there are many people like me, for instance. I'm responsible for translating the entire show into Polish, localizing it. Also, I'm doing a lot of work when it comes to fact-checking. As I said, I mean, localizing, making it also profiled to Polish audience. Because, I mean, there are some, I would say like 10 to 15% differences between the language versions, so that we actually make it a little bit more compelling towards the local audiences. But I would like to stress one thing: we're not changing the facts. So if there's something uncomfortable for the Germans, which obviously there will be, we are saying it
just
as
go
it
ahead
was.
with it, exactly,
because this is our duty. I mean, this is something that we're actually trying to pay a lot of attention to. Like there's this kind of educational mission, because obviously our company. I mean, I don't mean to speak about like to perform an advertisement of the company, but basically, a lot of stuff we're doing is revolving around entertainment. But this is something completely different, and we're trying to really embrace that mission to bring like educate young people, and to basically raise awareness about history, because we feel that's important.
Tell me, if you're doing an episode once a week, and speaking, you're just saying that there's a whole army of staff behind the program. like, can you give us a quick run through of what this week looked like? So when do you get the script? When do you go into the studio? How long does it take to actually prepare? I mean, how long are these episodes last? I mean, so I've got I kind of imagine that even you coming here is kind of taking time away from you from the studio or like working on something, because it just sounds like such an enormous project.
Well, basically, to tell you the truth, that was the initial idea, to do it like week by week, on week by week basis. But because we're doing 3 language versions at the same time, and we're launching all the episodes at the same time, it would be not possible to actually do it on that basis. So basically, we incorporated the workflow that's based on 1 month routine. So basically, every time I have to record something, I'm preparing for 4+ episodes for each session.
Sure.
Usually it's something around like 5-6 episodes, because we also have like special episodes. We're preparing a show when we answer our audience questions. For instance, we're preparing about like special episode about Red Baron, stuff like that. So basically, I usually get the scripts around week in advance, and then I'm totally drowned in work, because I'm fact checking, I'm translating, I'm making sure that everything is to the point, so that, because I know how this show is basically watched by people who want to know about history, but also about people who know a lot. They just want some kind of confirmation or a different spotlight on those facts. So basically, there's no chance you make a mistake, because they're gonna point it out immediately.
Exactly.
So that's why I'm paying so much attention to actually keep it consistent, keep it accurate. And then I just commence the recording session. I'm the host. There's one person who basically operates the camera. The second person who operates the prompter, because there's so much information that I'm actually, I have to be helped by the prompter. Basically, there's just no way I'm gonna be able to remember so much information. And there's a third person who directs it all. And once the recording is done, usually it's something around 4 hours of material.
Wow. Do you get to pick your own costumes?
No. But I actually, when I was told that I have to wear some kind of a costume, I was kind of skeptical. But then when they actually told me what's the concept of the entire program, I kind of dig it. So I think it's an interesting approach. And we were able to build a really nice looking set. I'm really proud that we actually can film in this kind of environment. And basically, once the recording is done, I'm creating a kind of a raw edit of every episode, because I'm also editing the Polish version, because, I'm
you really do have your work cut out, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously, the main reason why I do it personally is because I'm the only person in the entire Great War production crew that actually speaks Polish. So, nice. So they will not be able to edit something in the language that they don't know, right? So basically, after I finish preparing the raw edit, I'm being given the finished version of the British episode, which is the episode that gets produced first. And then it's kind of like a master copy for all the other episodes. And then I basically synchronized, I make adjustments, I make sure that the show is consistent between the language versions, but also it's consistent as a separate entity. And it's a lot of time, believe me.
Yeah, I can imagine. Marek Kamiński, many thanks for coming in the studio.
Thank you so much for having me.
And for those of you out there who want to check it out, just go to YouTube and type in Polish, of course, Historia Wojny Nieznanej, or you can type in The Great War Mediacraft, and that's with a K. And I'm sure you'll be able to come across it. And I've seen a few episodes, and they're pretty good fun to watch. So once again, Marek Kamiński, many thanks for coming in.
Thank you, man. Cheers.
It's a wrap.